Thank you so much, Rick, and thank you, big thank you to the Rotary Club for this wonderful evening in honor of our parents. We're very excited to introduce our parents to you tonight. You probably know them well as Maplewood citizens, but we thought we'd give you a sense of them from the perspective of their children, about what it was like to grow up as a Profeta in Maplewood.
So as Kathy said, you may know my parents from their recent years in Maplewood. You may remember them as for the work on the Community Coalition on Race, for my father's time on the Township Committee and as mayor, and for my mother's service in the community. But I think we need to start by saying their service goes back much further in this town. I remember when I couldn't have been more than 3 or 4 years old, there was our mother who was organizing the movement to start recycling in the town of Maplewood. I have early recollections of her and a friend Ellen Greenfield, who I saw here tonight, in the kitchen, working to get this town to address solid waste. And yes, that is true. Even before my father became the Green Mayor, my mother was the one who began the Green Maplewood.
Absolutely, Tim, and civic engagement was the norm for Dad, too, in these early years. My earliest memory was of him advocating to save Maplewood Junior High. It was about 1976. I think the group was called the Concerned Citizens. Is that right? This is all through my blurry childhood memory, but I do remember that it involved a lot of going door to door with petitions. I think I helped with that. And then there was the banner that his group finally got hung over Maplewood Avenue advertising their cause, and about which he was incredibly proud, and then about which he was incredibly infuriated when the rival group cut it down. And I do clearly believe that was the first time I heard him utter a bad word.
You're saying it's the first time our father ever cursed?
It's entirely possible, too, that he did curse before that moment.
But you have no evidence of him ever cursing.
It's true, he may never have cursed before that moment.
Then there was my mother's decision to go back to medical school when we were only 10 and 8 years old. And I'm forever proud of her decision to go back to school. And really go back to school in a system that didn't embrace people coming back to school in their 30s. And, didn't embrace people doing this mid-career. And, well, she showed them. She not only went back, but she graduated first in her class from UMDNJ. And, it wasn't just that she did so well and that she overcame those barriers. I think about the challenge she had, having 2 somewhat bratty elementary and middle school kids at home. And then having to go into a residency in downtown Newark when we were finding our first AIDS patients, we didn't know what AIDS was. To go through that as a doctor and then come back and tolerate our behavior. As a father of a 13 and 9-year-old, I don't think you should do anything else. But I think her sense of service really came home when she finished her residency, and despite all her accomplishments, she really made a conscious choice not to go for a flashier fellowship or specialty, but instead wanted to be a primary care practitioner to help people in their everyday lives, in their taking care of people every day. And that's what she's been done for years in this town.
And we have to also give a shout out to Dad's encouragement and support of Mom going back to school and finding a second career and dealing with her being on call and leaving in the middle of the night. Perhaps the support didn't quite extend to washing the dishes regularly, but really everything else you had covered. And I think we should do just a little mention of how that understanding that Dad had might have come from his own mother. Some of you knew Lynn Profeta, who also went back to work after her kids were in elementary school and gave him an excellent model for how that was possible. And her work was also to serve the Maplewood community, so there's a tradition.
But as we said, we want to show you them as parents as well as them as citizens. So I just want to give you a little more flavor of what it was like to grow up in the household. They were great parents to grow up with. And just a few anecdotes. One thing my father had was a gift for institutionalizing things into great traditions immediately. We had so many things in our house that all of a sudden became tradition because it was so fun the first time. And I just want one little tradition I just love that we'll be remembering is we would have a spot on the Jefferson School lawn from which in the winter you could see through the trees and you could see the commuters walking to the train. And we would every morning sprint to that spot and wait for our father, and he would stop. I don't know, he must have a stone or something, and wait, and we had this great. So, and my mother also, taught us to really appreciate our environments too, and to the peace of being in nature. And I have great memories with her of just going and walking the reservation with a dog up to the top of Locust Grove and looking over the town, and just the fine peace in nature that we've always had from this day forward, that day forward.
Dad also infused in us a real sense of family history here in Maplewood. There was a lot of storytelling about growing up Fred. And since Maplewood was the setting for that, every location here, almost every location, is invested with some kind of mythological importance. We feel part of the community because, oh, that's the corner my dad had that egg fight on. And he infused that connection with the Maplewood landscape in all four of us. But Tim, we won't mention how many of those stories are about using illegal explosives, right?
We should not mention that.
Okay. Meanwhile, in contrast to Dad's profound sense of Maplewood narrative, we had the general sense of growing up with Mom was a profound sense of ethical behavior, a deep-seated sense of what's right and wrong, which she doesn't preach at all, just teaches by example. At the most, you'd know if she thought something was a bad idea from her saying, some sort of slight angle to the head, maybe a brow furrow. But see, often that was enough. That's all you needed, because we had a good sense of an ethical compass from just being around Mom.
And I just want to also talk about just how she was great, how fun, how caring she was as a mother, and also how empowering. I just had one more anecdote for you tonight about how she sort of taught us to think for ourselves and be our own people. I remember being a 6 or 7-year-old boy coming to my mother over and over again saying, I'm bored. I probably want to watch TV or something. But instead of just giving in and turning the TV on, she sat me down and she brainstormed a list of every possible thing I might want to do that would be fun. We put them in the little sheets of paper, we stuck them in a mason jar, and that became the go-to jar. And so whenever from then on I had something I wanted to do, my mother would say, well, you brought things up, go find yourself something to do. Now, I think this probably brought about 2 months apiece, but, it made a much longer me about sort of empowering you to really sort of pick your own course and think about what you want to do. So, but most of all, growing up with my mother, it felt like my mother was always there, always supportive. And in point of fact, because she went away to medical school, she wasn't there all the time. But the important thing was it always felt like she was.
Well, we hope that gives you a feeling, some sort of feeling for our parents from our perspective. Our parents, this year's winners of the Citizenship Award. This is a well-deserved award. They have served this community with a deep sense of obligation and purpose, and also fun, which they have also taken care to instill in us. They taught us that giving back to the community that's around you is just absolutely the norm. It's what you should do.
And for that, and for the years of love and support, Mom and Dad, you have long earned the Citizenship Award in the Profeta family. We are glad that the Maplewood Rotary Club has now acknowledged what we have long known, and that you are true citizens of Maplewood. So I believe, if Rick is correct, we'd like to now present you with this well-deserved award.